Yeah, the scene that I'm most proud of is when Clark first enters the Backrooms, goes downstairs and turns off the breaker, and the room's plunged into darkness, and then he walks back upstairs and notices on his way the glitch in the wall, the glint into the Backrooms, and then he approaches it and enters and explores it for the first time. To me, this felt like the quintessential Backrooms scene that you imagine when someone first describes the project. And it's also the first time that you see the Backrooms in full resolution. And so to me, it was the one that had to be perfect. The way that we captured it and the way that I feel when we watch it, it feels really close to what I had always pictured. And so I feel quite proud that it exists the way that it does, and it transports the audience into the Backrooms in what I consider a meaningful way. Hello, my name is Jeremy Cox. I'm the cinematographer on Backrooms.
Quello che avete appena sentito è il direttore della fotografia del film di cui tratteremo oggi. Qui mi stava spiegando la scena che lo ha reso più fiero di tutto il film, ma oltre a questo Jeremy mi ha risposto ad altre domande. Ma prima di lasciare la parola a lui, cerchiamo di capire prima da dove proviene e come nasce il fenomeno delle Backrooms. Tutto ha inizio nel 2019 su 4chan, che si presentano come un luogo fittizio e surreale extradimensionale che può espandersi all'infinito, caratterizzate da stanze vuote, apparentemente vuote e di colore giallo. La prima foto caricata, e Jeremy poi la menzionerà all'interno dell'intervista, raffigura un corridoio inclinato. Dopo che questo post ha guadagnato fama, diversi utenti hanno iniziato a redigere storie inerenti alle Backrooms e in generale al fenomeno delle creepypasta, tra l'altro fenomeno dal quale deriva il sottogenere dell'horror, ovvero l'analog horror, e poi tutto quello che ne deriva con il found footage. Nel gennaio del 2022 un cortometraggio intitolato The Backrooms verrà caricato da un utente di nome Kane Parsons, che allora aveva 16 anni e che diventerà poi anche il regista del lungometraggio di cui parleremo oggi. Quel cortometraggio ovviamente esplode, diventa virale e sorprende soprattutto per il grado di tensione che riesce a creare nonostante le risorse estremamente limitate da parte di Kane all'epoca. Comunque ve lo lascio in descrizione se volete recuperarlo e non l'avete mai visto. E arriviamo quindi a parlare poi dell'adattamento cinematografico diretto sempre da Kane Parsons, e A24 mi ha dato la possibilità di porre delle domande a Jeremy Cox, il direttore della fotografia, e la prima cosa che gli ho chiesto è stata da dove è partita la discussione fatta con Kane per iniziare a visualizzare in maniera più ampia questo mondo all'interno di un lungometraggio.
Kane and I's first conversations were all about the hyper-subjective perspective. It's quite clear in the YouTube series that they all exist as a POV. And so our early conversations were considering how this would be adapted in a cinematic narrative context. To do this, we talked a lot about seeing spaces and things alongside the characters. And so we never, as the audience, see something before the character does. So for example, when Clark's in the Backrooms, we're looking around the corner as he's looking around the corner, or we're looking to him seeing around the corner. A lot of our original conversations were kind of about finding ways of embracing a hypersubjective perspective and what this looked like in a narrative cinematic setting.
Dopodiché abbiamo parlato della sua collaborazione con Danny Vermette, lo scenografo del film. Le scenografie di Backrooms sono un qualcosa di spigoloso e che in un certo senso mettono a disagio sicuramente chi le va a calpestare, e svolgono anche un ruolo centrale in quanto metafora di quello che svolgono i due protagonisti. Da una parte abbiamo Clark, un architetto che vende mobili, quindi ha a che fare con gli spazi fisici, e dall'altro lato abbiamo Mary, una psicologa, una figura che si occupa dello spazio dell'inconscio. Ecco, gli ho chiesto a Jeremy che tipo di dialogo avesse avuto con Danny e la risposta è stata questa.
It's really interesting how Clark's relationships to physical spaces and Mary's relationship to an unconscious space coexist. Danny and I had a really fun time adapting Kane's vision or building towards Kane's vision, specifically with the Backrooms spaces. It was awesome taking Blender models that Kane had prepped and finding the best way to realize them. A lot of attention to detail, to the trims, the frequency of the overhead lights, and the tonality of the carpet and the wallpaper. It was awesome working with Danny and just figuring out different swatches and iterations and being able to pinpoint and focus in on what that what the Backrooms looks like in reality. We did a lot of experimentation and searching to kind of find what we all thought was the most realistic interpretation or realistic manifestation of the Backrooms. Outside of the Backrooms, there's a lot of interesting kind of peculiar elements. We wanted to find a way to let some of the logic bleed outwards. It's not always going into the Backrooms. There's a bit of a duality there. And so Clark's office, for example, is very angular. We are quite charmed by that and how furniture doesn't fit in the spaces. So there was this ongoing kind of discussion on embracing the anomalies in the reality. There's an ongoing discussion about embracing the anomalies outside of the Backrooms and in the kind of everyday setting. Other instances, Mary's office is a very small, very confined. This allowed us to kind of adopt more peculiar angles or kind of forced us into a more peculiar coverage of the space. Again, the furniture not quite fitting. There are a couple other instances as well where adopting the anomalies presented by a space being too small for itself create an interesting visual logic to run with. Biggest challenges, the most surprising challenge was operating Bobby's DV camera. It's quite specific style of operating. We spent the whole film kind of composing and focusing our perspective, and then when Bobby's holding the camera, it's inherently accidental. And so not only are you embracing like a counterintuitive operating logic, but then you're also participating in the scene with the other actors and being a part of the space with them and motivating their lines off camera as well, trying not to frame it too conventionally so that it feels intentional but accidental. Alongside that, it's one of the only instances that you're directly referencing Kane's YouTube shorts. He has a very specific approach to building those in Blender and keyframing all the specific waypoints or points of interest in a room. So for example, going into the room, seeing each corner, and then the end of it, hallway, and then approaching the hallway. And so Kane had a very clear idea of how that handheld should look from the Blender process. And so then taking that into the real world and having this controlled but also effortlessly accidental handheld was a very interesting challenge.
Dopo avermi raccontato della sua sfida più grande, mi ha parlato di come ha risolto il problema del giallo che rimbalza sui toni della pelle.
Yeah, we were very concerned about the yellow affecting the skin tones. We did a shoot months before pre-pro started in a white-walled space, and in color we had made it yellow, similar to how the original Oshkosh photograph, the 4chan image, is a mist white balance rather than an actual yellow room. And so we had tried an approach in a white room where we would white balance shift it into that yellow green. However, when you have a person in there, their skin tone also takes that journey. And so the skin would look quite sickly and yellow. And so it was immediately clear that we needed to offset the look of the wallpaper and skew it slightly yellow, and then do the rest of it in color correction. And so majority of the yellow comes from the wallpaper, and the last little bit comes from color correction. And this way we can have separation between the skin tone and the yellow. We printed off a bunch of different flats with different shades of yellow, and there was kind of a middle point where it started to feel really natural and true to the source material without feeling like a caricature of itself.
Ed essendo poi molto presenti inquadrature piuttosto ampie e nitide, gli ho chiesto ovviamente con cosa avesse scelto di girare e perché. Considerando poi che il film contiene una buona parte in VHS, gli ho chiesto in che modo fosse riuscito a matchare la parte live action con questa estetica.
Yeah, we embraced clarity. And so to do this, we shot with the Sony Venice 2 alongside the Supreme Primes. This gave us a full frame field of view, which was great for wider angle perspectives and just retaining a clear image. We didn't want to impose anything on the Backrooms. We wanted it to speak for itself. It's such a monochromatic space that if there was any aberration or vignetting on the sides, we were worried that it would detract or would impose the wrong idea onto the space. And so it was all about letting the space speak for itself. And yeah, it was a really interesting challenge matching the VHS material with the Blender VHS material. It's kind of the crux of the film in that you have an image one image is created in Blender on the computer, and another image is created live action on set with actors, yet they both need to look the exact same. And so we went about a bunch of different cameras trying to figure out the best form factor to do this. Of course, it needed to have a servo zoom and be a small chip camera, so we used the red Komodo so that we could also do set extensions and be able to blend the 3D model into the live action camera. And then from there, we printed both the VHS tape to kind of bake them together. We did look at using some VHS cameras, however, it would be impossible to do effects onto, and then to kind of get under the hood or under the skin of it to stitch the Blender and the live action together. So we found that the red Komodo was the best way of, we found that shooting a cleaner digital image was the best way of setting that up. I was always really impressed by the views that the Backrooms had and its kind of cultural significance. And so I had a feeling that it would be really interesting to a lot of people. And it's been so surreal seeing how many people have connected with it and have appreciated it and have had a really fun time enjoying it. And so to be a part of it means a lot.
E questa è stata un po' la conversazione che ho avuto con Jeremy. Io ovviamente ringrazio ancora A24 e il team per avermi dato la possibilità di fare due chiacchiere con lui. Se vi può interessare questo genere di video, quindi portare altri professionisti a raccontare il loro lavoro, non necessariamente italiani, fatemelo sapere qui sotto con un commento, a me farebbe piacere. Vi ringrazio per la visione, vi ricordo ovviamente che in descrizione trovate anche tutti i link e le informazioni varie, tra cui anche il cortometraggio su YouTube di Kane, e come sempre ci vediamo ad un prossimo video. Ciao a tutti ragazzi!